Good morning. About 10 minutes ago there were crows here. First of all one, then another one flew in, then another one flew in, and there were 4 of them. And I didn't think about this before. It might seem very, very little to think about, very insignificant. But there were 2 purple herons that were also doing their dance there in the sky, just above the level of the water, not like these other egrets there that are flying higher over here as well. And you have all these birds like those egrets and like the cranes, the purple heron, and they all live on the water, but the crows were there at the edge of the water and they were picking away at things, but they didn't go out in the water. So there are some birds that live well in the water and some that don't. You usually don't see sparrows on water. You don't see pheasant on water. At least I don't remember as a child. But you see duck and geese and so many other birds. It's interesting, all the order in nature, in creation. Today we're have a set of readings for this Sunday that give a glimpse of like a whole world view, a view of reality of human life. Oh, look at this here. There we have another crow that found something worthwhile. I was also thinking about the history here. You know, here we have Hasmonean history, archaeology, Hasmonean period archaeology, especially here in the Franciscan side, some little bits in our side, but mostly in the Franciscan side. And that's very interesting because in the Hasmonean period, if we think about the politics here, there was big division. The Hasmoneans are after the Maccabees, right? And Herod the Great marries a Hasmonean. I think her name was Miriam. And his mother, I think, was Nabatean. Her name was Chipre, I think, and probably related to Cyprus or something like that. And the Nabateans were involved in the incense trade, and Petra is a very famous town of the ancient town of the Nabateans, and they had a number of towns across the Negev for the incense trade from the Gulf region to Ashdod and Ashkelon and Gaza. And so after in the Hasmonean period, before Herod the Great, there's internal conflict, and one brother gets allied or is allied with the Persians, and the other one turns to the Romans and says, "Wouldn't you like to help me?" And the Romans were thrilled with the opportunity, and they engage and obviously win. And so we're talking about the mid-60s before Christ. So that's well before Herod the Great's power reign. And we see that conflict. The Persian Empire and the Roman Empire were constantly in tension. If we go back further, we have Alexander the Great, and he pushed eastward, and the Persians never forgot that. And they came back in 614, so over 800 years later, to get even. And there we have the destruction here of all the Byzantine reality at that time. But meanwhile, the Romans had pushed back the Persians, and all that battle of over and back, and big alliances. So you have the small kings get involved, the small power brokers ally themselves with bigger ones. And it's very normal for a business to get started and to get help from another business, or sometimes there's a business there and one grows out of it, sprouts like a little sprout from the tree there that can grow up. And we have an idea that we're kind of just doing our own life, our own activities, our own decisions, our own spiritual life. But actually we're also in a very big alliance. And that's the biblical view. And we also have very big enemies. And that's the biblical view. It's part of our faith. And that's sketched out for us today. In the first reading we have that faith vision of the very beginning of humanity, where we're in the Garden of Eden and God shows up after the fall, after original sin. And he's asked a very big question. Where are you? Adam, where are you? Adam and Eve, where are you? And that's an amazing question because it probes inside the person. And commentators have often remarked how the human being, by cutting the moorings from God, or trying to cut them, because we can't cut them, we're created and we don't hold ourselves in existence. We don't know the day of our departure from this world. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We've no idea what's going to happen with health, with economy, with politics, with conflicts. No idea. Maybe some people think they know and they carry out a certain type of operation or activity. At the end of the day, they don't know. They just have to deal with the changing circumstances. Some things can fail, other things work out. Certain things we control, but a lot of things we don't control. We don't control the timing of earthquakes and volcanoes and tsunamis. We don't even control the weather. And there are things in our health we can't control. Condition of our heart sometimes, tumors, so many things. We attempt maybe to cut the moorings from God. We think we can handle life. But actually we get alienated because we were created. We're part of an incredible alliance from get-go. And Adam and Eve think that it's no longer possible. It's very attractive to have the independence. They doubt God's will, his love. But now they are lost. Where are you? Before they enjoyed God's company very much. And so when they come into conversation with God now, they wanted to hide because they felt there was something wrong. They were ashamed. And they blame each other. And then the ultimate blame is given to the serpent. A figure that's clearly identified with Satan. This is part of the worldview. There are some people that try to explain the world without Satan's presence. And the biblical view is that Satan is there, and that he's an enemy of our soul, or the enemy of our soul, of our peace, of our community. It's interesting that in our time there's a rise of acceptance of conversation with Satan, of dialogue. And that conversation we can never win out. We only win out by walking away from it, because he's an enemy. And his whole purpose is destruction. And the gospel reading develops this theme a lot more. In Jesus in Capernaum, the Word made flesh. And there's a huge connection with that first reading from Genesis 3. Because in the last verse of Genesis 3 that we have in the text today, verse 15, there's the promise of salvation. It's actually called the proto-gospel, the first good news of relief, of redemption for humanity, that we will be redeemed, that there's going to be enmity, and this we experience all the time, between the woman's offspring, Eve. Somebody built a bridge over the Mississippi, apparently. There are a lot of egrets here. I don't know if we'll catch them before they leave. I saw them on a tree. Yeah, they're still here. It's nice to see the birds fly away. They're beautiful patterns of movement. You see, I have a lot right there. I saw them from the other side. Oh, right here we have more. Let's see if we catch the other ones. Yes, they're all landing over here. What's this? And Jesus is very clear about the intentions of Satan and the destruction he wants to bring about. And he is able to expel demons. He has power over Satan. Something we on our own do not have. So we need an alliance. We need to enter into alliance. There's an expression in Paul's writings, I'm not sure where it is exactly right now, and that this life is not just a battle here on earth for us, but it's actually a battle of spirits. In the heavens, it's not just in the earth. And so our need for grace, our need for God on our side to overcome hatred in our heart, to overcome laziness, to overcome sadness, defeat, depression, resignation before the advance of evil. We need a big alliance. And that's the wonderful psalm we have. With God is the fullness of salvation. With God is the fullness of salvation. With God is the fullness of salvation. And we go on to the letter of the Corinthians, second letter, chapter 4 that we have. And this text is also wonderful because it says, as we go through these battles and our body decays, we lose an arm or a leg, we have major illness, that an eternal weight of glory is prepared for us. An eternal weight of glory. This is marvelous. So we live in the middle of a battlefield where major alliances are in conflict, and we're not there alone. And when we look at another human being that is hostile to us, we must realize that maybe the enemy has a hold of that person, digging in hatred, judgmentalism, rancor, hostility, aggression, violence. And how do we help this person to be free of that? Because this person can also reach the eternal weight of glory. It's amazing. Here, all the plotting, all the power plays of the Hasmoneans, of the Greeks and the Romans, the Persians. We're not just a few little people like those birds sitting on a branch. There's a huge pressure system of conflict around us. And we need to know how to be aligned in that, in those storms of life. And that's our great confidence. These must be the local birds that know us here, so they're not in a hurry to fly away. They feel we're on their side, we're in their alliance. Some people make fun of that idea, that it's just all human. But the scriptures have a big teaching for us today about the presence of evil. From the very beginning of human history, right up to the conflicts humanity engages in today. With all the human alliances within there, the battles, the spiritual battles. There we need prayer, we need the scriptures first of all, the announcement of God's salvation. And we can have great trust and hope, obviously in the measure that we remain united and grow in that communion with God. And with great love for those who are around us, even if they're hostile, knowing that we want them to discover the nature of the battle and who's on their side really. People, God bless you. See you later, alligators. Have a blessed Sunday. Great new week opening up. This is the first day of the week.